Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. How are you doing? Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, and do say hi in chat. I see quite a few people watching live. Do let me know where you're joining us from and what you do for a living. What is your profession? All right, nobody's writing anything, so I assume you can hear me. If you can't, just let me know. So if you haven't been to one of my webinars or live streams, this slide is an intro about me. So a little bit about what I do. So my background is used to be in journalism, then in tech. I'm currently a co-founder in a startup, and I was endorsed for the Global Talent Visa as a software engineer back in 2022. Since then, I've been helping people in various specialties in digital technology get endorsed. Most of my clients have been software engineers, if I think about it, but by now I think I have helped so many different people, people who work in sales, in business development, startup founders, marketers, salespeople, and pretty much any other specialty in tech that I can think of. So it doesn't really matter if you work on the business side of things or on the technical side of things, I will be able to help you. I like to do my webinars in a more interactive way, where if you have questions, you can ask them in chat, and I will try to answer them. If you just want to network, do that. But overall, as a presenter, it's really quite difficult to just talk to the camera without any kind of feedback. So if you have feedback during the presentation, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to ask them. So I guess the question that interests people most of all who join is, whether. Sorry, I just need to adjust my camera a little bit. So yeah, should be good now. Can you get the global talent visa? Obviously, the answer is depends. Depends on a lot of factors, on your professional background, but mostly, of course, on your accomplishments and whether you can meet the necessary criteria. We're going to be talking a lot about the criteria today. So again, if you have questions about the criteria, about whether your specific specialty fits the expectation of technician, again, be sure to ask me. If you have any concerns whether what you're hearing now is still up to date, if you're watching this as a recording, make sure to always double check the information with Technician Visa Guide. This is the single source of truth for all things Global Talent Visa. It got updated quite recently in end of January this year, so it's been a little over almost 2 months now. To me, those changes didn't represent anything significant because I have been given very similar advice to my coaching clients for a very long time. So to me, it seems like the guide finally caught up with the information that I've been sharing. But if you are not aware of the changes just yet, make sure to double check them. The guide currently looks a little bit different. Its formatting is different, but the contents are still the same. So make sure to double check them. The webinar today will include the updated changes. So if you are not aware of the changes yet, continue watching. So if you think about the visa the candidates fall roughly into two categories or two camps, the business side and the technical side. So if you go to Tech Nation Visa Guide, you will see a list of specialties that are eligible for the visa. So here you can see the technical skills that are acceptable, and the next slide will be the business skills. What I wanted to highlight here is that this is not an exhaustive list. It's actually just a list of professions that can help you understand what they're looking for. But the rule of thumb is that if you work in tech and you have product experience, meaning experience working in digital technology product-led companies, and I'll talk about that in a bit, you are, generally a good candidate for the visa. So if you don't see your exact profession in this list, it doesn't mean that you are not eligible. Maybe it's just not there, right? It's impossible to have an exhaustive list of all the specialties in tech, and the guide doesn't really mean to do that. So if you're watching this live, please write in chat what your specialty is, if it's in business or it's in the technical side of things. Just let us know so that I know who's watching this. Maybe I can share some information that is most relevant to you. And then others can also know who is on the call together. So, in terms of who is definitely not eligible for the visa, I would say that the most relevant, probably to most people watching this, would be the case with consultants. So, generally, if you work in a consulting company or a service company, it's getting the visa is going to be very challenging. If you're in this situation, I would recommend talking to a specialist who has experience with this visa, and making sure that you're able to present appropriate evidence, right? So, for instance, if you currently work in a consulting company, maybe you want to focus on your previous product experience, right, in your evidences or other things like that. And I think if you're not sure whether a company is product or consulting, it's actually quite easy to determine that. Typically, if your company is making money from the sales of its own digital product, this is a product company. And if it's making products for other businesses and selling the IP to those products to them, then it's a consultancy. Obviously, there is some nuance to that. So if you are not sure, again, we can talk separately, but make sure that you understand the distinction and you understand what kind of evidence you're presenting for the criteria that are specifically focused on product-led companies. So obviously, it's not enough just to have a job in tech, and I think a lot of people kind of fall down this rabbit hole of just assuming that if you work in tech, especially if you work in big tech, that it's enough to become endorsed. It's not the case. You need to present a lot of evidence to get endorsed. You need to meet quite a few criteria. So 3 in total, the mandatory and then 2 optional. For each criteria, you submit at least 2 unique evidences. Most people submit much more. So we're looking at up to 10 separate unique documents that you need to submit. And if you think about it, it's much more than just having a job. It's showing your leadership, showing your contributions, showing recognition in the field. And this is, I think, very important to understand. So having a job in tech, working in a product-led company is a foundation that is required. It's the baseline. But then you need a lot of more things on top. And this is where a lot of people get rejected because they only have the professional experience. So this criteria, the mandatory that you see on the screen, it's the leadership criteria. That's, I think, the common way to refer to it on forums if you look for stuff. So this criteria is meant to show that you received recognition as a leader or an emerging leader if you're a beginner in tech, in the last 5 years. The word 5 years is very important. The evidences here, they need to be focused on the last 5 years. It's a very strict rule. I would see a lot of people get rejected where their evidences for this criteria are all outside of the 5 years. It also needs to be very consistent. It can't be last minute. So if all of your evidences for the mandatory criteria are within the last 6 months or so, this might look very suspicious for technician, because they might assume that this evidence was manufactured to support your application, and very often they would reject people for recent evidence, right? So I think a common question at this point is, so how old the evidence should be. Obviously, there is no magic number or some cutoff that works and that doesn't. The answer will depend on your case, how many years you have in total in the industry, and the specifics of your other accomplishments. But basically, the rule of thumb here is that the contributions need to be consistent, they need to be spread out in time, they need to be relevant, and they need to be within the last 5 years. Hope this is clear. If not, then please ask in chat if you have any concrete questions. I'll be happy to clarify. So here on the screen, you can see examples of documents that people use for the mandatory criteria. They are, revolving around public speaking, publications where you share your expert knowledge, open source, awards, recognition, recognition by awards, or being included in some ratings or rankings, depending on your field. This will be different, but basically receiving some kind of industry recognition is what people submit for this criteria. Then a very common one is the media mentions, which is podcasts, interviews, or quotes that you have given to media, maybe profiles written about you specifically. And this should be about you, not about your company. So for maybe one edge case here would be a startup, if it's a very early stage startup and there are just two people and there are a bunch of articles about you raising money or maybe achieving some other milestones, then yes, in a way, it's a recognition of you as well. So you can use that evidence for people who are employees at big companies, just publishing, using articles about your employer doesn't seem to do the trick in most cases. Technician is looking for the recognition of your own talents and your own standing in the industry. So the mandatory criteria should be all about, okay, not all, but mostly about external stuff. I think this is probably the biggest confusion that people have about this visa. And I would say that the guide doesn't really help here. So if you read the guide, you would see bullet points where sort of similar actually to what I've done. So I should have done a better job here as well. So basically, if you read the guide, you would see that the salary document, for instance, from your job that you're making a lot of money, or maybe your work project that you've done, that they have the same weight as an industry award or maybe speaking at a conference. And that's not true at all. So I would say that salary is probably the weakest document that you can submit to the endorser for the mandatory criteria. They've clarified it a little bit in the latest version of the guide, but it's still confusing people. So I coach people, I'm having discovery calls now daily almost. And this is where still people are very confused. So I hope this webinar clarifies it, and I hope people won't be applying for the visa with just their salary and some work project. That doesn't cut it. So for most people, the case should be backed up with public evidence of your leadership, right? So things that are, think about your personal brand, basically. If you have it, then mandatory criteria will be very easy. If you don't have it, then it will be quite difficult. The rest, like specifics of it, depend on your case, but that's the rule of thumb. Still, I think a lot of people hope that they can, take some work project, for instance, their project at Meta or Google that received a lot of press and pull it off. In my experience, this leads to rejections if this is all you have for mandatory, right? So make sure that you have something else, and how much you need there depends on your case. Again, obviously, the more the better, but yeah, basically from the mandatory criteria, it should be obvious why you're a leader. I think that's it. If this is just internal stuff, work stuff, big salary, it doesn't convince technician at all. Let me take a look at who is here today. Just say hi to everybody. Okay, so we have a marketing assistant at a tech company. Okay, question: is it possible for me to try under exceptional promise? So again, okay, let's keep like personalized questions to separately. Obviously, promise talent is two different categories of the visa, right? So somebody who is a beginner in tech, they would go under promise. Somebody who has over 5 years of experience would go under talent. So this depends on how much time you have in technology, what exactly you do, and things like that, right? So answer is it depends. Another question is from a data analyst, I assume. Yeah, obviously, yes, you can apply for the Global Talent Visa if you have necessary achievements and contributions. Okay. Let's see what else. Okay. I was worried about the recency point as most of my work is under NDAs. How would you explain this in the application? Sorry, Nina, I'm not sure I understand the question. How is recency connected to NDAs? Maybe you can clarify and I'll return to that. Okay, let's see. I will attend a conference which is about the research paper that we're working. I will attend on the 26th of April and I'm planning to apply 5 days later. Do you think it might be a problem? So it's actually a good question. So Sarah, thank you for the question. Here, I would say it's nuanced, right? It depends on what else is in your application. I've had clients submit evidences that had something super recent. If they had a paper come out just a week before the application or a conference or something like that, they use that and they got endorsed. It's more about not having everything happen just within the last 5 months or 6 months. So if your evidences for mandatory are spread out in time, then you should be fine. Okay, let's move on to the next criteria. So the next one is the optional criteria innovation. It's actually a very tricky one that people assume is very easy to meet because the technician visa guide is very vague and it doesn't really explain anything about it. But in reality, it's very hard to meet this criteria and very few people can qualify. So I've helped a bunch of people get it, and like I know how to do it, but honestly, it's a long shot for most candidates that want to get the visa. So most candidates, I think most people on this call will go for the second and the third criteria. Maybe some will try the first. If you need help with the first criteria, email me. I'm always interested in seeing how this criteria can be met. It's a good challenge. So if you think about the innovation criteria, you should think about it in a couple of. So basically, you need to do a couple of things here. So first, you should be really working on an innovative concept or product in an innovative field. And again, this is sort of subjective, but anything cutting edge that you can describe as cutting edge can be relevant here. You need to show that you are the leader of this innovation. So, for instance, if you are founder of a company that is building a product that is recognized as innovative, then you can claim this criteria. Or if you are working on a product within a larger company, but you can still prove that you were the leader here and not somebody else, that can work too. it's harder, and many people get rejected here because technician can always say, hey, look, it was a team effort, it was a huge company, so like it's not just you. But you need to make the case to the assessor that without you the product wouldn't be the way it was, right? So if you can make this case, then maybe this criteria can be right for you. And another point here is that you need to have external proof of innovation. So what do I mean by external proof? Most people who apply for this criteria, they typically would just have some diagrams, some write-up about their company or their product, and then maybe a letter from an expert who'd say, yes, this product is very innovative, it's so new, it's amazing. That doesn't work. It's not enough because you can say this about anything, right? So what technician is looking for is some external proof of innovation. So this can be patents that are already granted. That's important. If you just applied for a patent, that doesn't really work. This isn't relevant to most people. I've only had maybe 1 or 2 clients in all of this time who had a patent to their name. For most people, they have to use more creative evidence here. For instance, publications that describe their product or their company as innovative. This can be publications in industry media, for instance, an article on some website, let's say TechCrunch, saying that your app or your product is the cutting edge something, or is the future of something, or the, I don't know, breakthrough in something. Wording like this can potentially be used, screenshots, links, all of that stuff. Basically, you're looking for somebody in the industry who is external, who is not your friend, who is not you, say that something that you've done is really innovative. And here, I've seen people successfully use different kinds of evidence about different kinds of innovations. So it can be product innovation. So, for instance, doing something for the first time in a specific market. This is relevant for product managers, for instance, or founders. Sometimes it's technical innovation. This can be some innovative algorithms. It can be some innovative implementation of a product, for instance. And if you led this implementation, if you develop this algorithm, this can work as well. But in all of those cases, one takeaway is that you need to find external proof of innovation. That's really crucial. And in all of the clients that I've helped who had those things, those external recognitions, they were successfully endorsed. And on forums, you would see a lot of unsuccessful cases where the candidate just submitted some, again, stocks, some salary or something like that, some financials for the innovation criteria. If you think about it, it really doesn't make much sense, in the sense that how does the performance of the company prove that it's innovative? It doesn't, right? So with this criteria, you really need to prepare like thorough case studies explaining the innovation, have some external proof, have good letters of recommendation backing this, and have a consistent story that is believable. So again, if you are going for this criteria, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you if I can, to make this criteria work. And on the screen, you can see some pointers that hopefully can be helpful for you. If you have any questions about the innovation, let me know in chat, as always. If you have any ideas for what specifically you'd be using for this criteria, you can share in chat or just write it down for yourself. I think if you make this webinar interactive, or if you're just engaged with it, if you take notes, if you write down ideas that you have to work on it yourself, maybe then reach out to me to kind of bounce ideas off of me. I think it will make it much more useful rather than just watching or listening to it, right? So if you have some ideas for innovations that you can use, write it down. Then later you can do some research, see whether your products or your projects come up in media or there is some other recognition like that. Before I move on, I wanted just to clarify something about questions. So during webinars, I like to take questions that are general enough so that others can benefit from it. That's first. So if I see a question that is very personalized, but I can deduce some useful generic thought from it, I'll be happy to share. But generally, if a question is around, am I eligible? Can I apply? Those kinds of questions, I don't answer it during webinars. That's my policy. I think it's really dangerous to give such advice without really talking to somebody, consulting them, and looking at their whole career history, their whole story. Um, it's very easy to give incorrect advice that can lead to big problems. For instance, if I say to you on chat or like on this webinar, no, you're not eligible, you might not apply even though you were eligible, but I didn't have the context. Or, on the other hand, I can be like, yeah, you should apply. And then in reality, you're not eligible. And then you have wasted a lot of money and time. So please bear with me here. And if you need like a consultation about assessing your chances, shoot me an email and I think it will be more productive. So, if you send me an email today, I'll respond very quickly and you'll have a more better understanding, right, of where you stand. Okay, so the second criteria is very popular. Most people on this call will use it probably. So this is all about external contributions to the field of tech. So you have your job, you have your 9 to 5, and then you have your free time, the weekends, the evenings. What do you do with your free time that helps the community? That's all there is to this criteria, right? If it's free and you do it outside of your work, that's all it takes, right? So these are the keywords: unpaid and not related to your job. So your contributions for the second criteria should not just be external and free. They should also be advancing the field of technology in some way. And you should be able to demonstrate how exactly it does it. So you can see on the screen some ideas for what you can use. Obviously, this is not like an exhaustive list. It's just what most people would use who choose this criteria. You can, I think here it would be useful if you have an idea of what you've done and you're wondering whether it's applicable. Maybe you can share in chat. So, for instance, like I've done mentoring within my organization. Is it eligible? Is it relevant, right? Or like I've done this and this. I'm not sure if it's relevant. So here, I think if you give details, I can answer and then others will benefit, right? So if anybody has doubts, please go ahead and ask. So for this criteria, again, you have to show consistent contributions. So it can't be just recent that you started mentoring or like publishing articles randomly within the last 2 weeks. That doesn't really work. So there should be a consistent history of doing that. There should be results that you can show, some impact or recognition. So if we're talking about publications, blog posts in moderated sources, so it's important. It can't be Medium, it can't be LinkedIn. It has to be some kind of platform where there is an editor approving your work or rejecting it. So if you have that, you need to show also that there has been some significant readership of those articles, that somebody read it, somebody maybe quoted it, somebody referenced it. Basically, that your work has some kind of impact on the field. It doesn't have to be viral or it doesn't have to be like super impactful, but there has to be something. And the same applies to other evidences. If we are talking about community work that you do, volunteering or other things, there should be some kind of impact that you show, how this activity that you do advances the field of tech, how it helps others, basically. Here you can be creative. You can look at it from different ways. I like brainstorming this with clients and coming up with ways how to show impact of their volunteering. Because normally there is some impact. It's just that people are very shy and maybe they don't see it. So, yeah, if you have questions about it, let me know. A very common problem with this criteria that I see is the mentoring one, the mentoring part. So many people think that if you have mentored somebody somewhere, it doesn't matter where, that you can get endorsed for this criteria. That's not the case. Read the guide. The guide is very clear that the mentoring has to be done within an organized program with selection criteria for mentors, and it should be structured. There should be a curriculum. There should be some kind of journey where you take people from point A to point B. So, example, if you are a volunteer teacher at the coaching bootcamp, that works because it's free. There is a structure, there is selection for a mentor, there is a curriculum, and then there is an outcome, which is very important because you need to show the outcome and the impact. So if you take a group of 30 people from zero skills to get an internship, you obviously have an impact on the economy because you got people into tech, right? This is what they want to see in this criteria. Very important. If, however, you only have experience mentoring people randomly on platforms like ADP List, sorry, but this doesn't really work for the second criteria. Some people might tell you that it works. A lot of people got endorsed with this evidence in the past. I've seen cases like this. It used to work. It really doesn't anymore, right? So if somebody tells you that for this criteria, you can just publish some articles on HackerNoon, then mentor 3 people on ADP List and do something random like this, just run from this person. They're either unprofessional or dishonest, right? So in any case, you don't want to be taking advice from advice like this. It's just really harmful. If you submit evidence like this that is kind of half-baked, not following the guide, recent, you will just be rejected, right? And it's kind of a waste of time and money, I think. So the mentoring part, I hope I explained it clearly. Just let me know if something is unclear still. um, what else? What else here is problematic? Let me see. Open source, yeah. So open source for any developers here. Open source is a really good evidence for the second criteria. However, it has to be done consistently. Again, it has to have impact. It has to have some influence on the community of developers. If it's a GitHub repo that has 2 stars and nobody uses, nobody sees it, it's not really what they're looking for. Another point of confusion is that some people think that just having a GitHub repo is enough, a GitHub profile is enough. Of course not. There is much more to that. Again, I'm sure that there are people spreading this kind of misinformation. And today I really wanted to take time to dispel those myths because honestly, I'm quite very often I'm very annoyed after my discovery calls that I do with clients because I get people who come to me after being, quote unquote, consulted by, again, experts in the field who tell them this incorrect information, charge them money, and then they get rejected. And then they come to me asking like how they can reverse a decision or like how they can appeal. And very often the answer is that there is no way to reverse the decision because in the first place, there was not enough evidence to start with, right? There was no point in applying in the first place because it's always a waste of money and resources. If you are lacking this evidence for the second criteria, no amount of, letters or, like random stuff, it won't help you, right? I think it's really important to be real here and understand that it's not, it won't do anything for you. So make sure that you have at least 2 unique evidences for this criteria. You have 3, great, but the evidence that you have, they should be solid. Like they should be meeting the requirements. You can add a third one that is maybe a little bit weaker than the 2, but make sure the 2 are rock solid. And then the second criteria will be doable. Other than that, it's complicated. Yeah, so as before, do you have any ideas for this criteria? Any doubts? Share in chat and let us know, and I'll share my guidance, and then this will help you and it will help others too. Okay, so there is another question on the topic of innovation. So I will attend the conference. In this paper, we design a web tool and IE conference accepted. So I'm planning to use it as innovation. Do you think it will be good? So I guess the point here is whether this acceptance can qualify as innovation. Whether can you make a case that being accepted qualifies as innovation? I guess it depends on the specifics of the conference, whether there will be any publications relevant to that describe it as innovative or not. So again, it's sort of hard to answer this question. Maybe what will help you, Busra, is thinking about this. Do you have a history of doing this, right? Do you have a history of innovations? Because it's not enough just to have one example of innovation. You need to have a track record. So you need to have at least 3 examples, of which where each one is provable as innovation and has external proof of innovation. So you need to look at the whole thing holistically. But yeah, it's hard to answer this without seeing the docs in detail. If you shoot me an email, maybe we can talk about it separately. Okay, so thanks for this question, Hassan. So 3 articles on HackerNoon. They have about 200 reads on each. Do they work for OC2? And I'm planning to write more articles on this platform. So honestly, HackerNoon is problematic and it's not the strongest kind of evidence that you can use. A lot of people used HackerNoon in the past. It used to work really well, but then everybody learned about it and everybody started using it. This is what always happens with TechNation. There is some possibility to use something, then people in chats and forums learn about it, they all start doing it. So the value of this platform or this possibility gets diminished. So on its own, HackerNoon is not the best platform to publish articles on. That's first. I would recommend choosing more niche platforms for your specific professional niche or category. So you can let us know like what is your specialty, right? And then you can Google and you can think which platforms your colleagues or people in your niche go to learn about their specialty. 200 reads on each. I don't think it's enough. I don't think it shows any significant contributions to the field. So yeah, it's not there yet, right? So hopefully it helps. Okay, so glad this helped. If you have any follow-ups, let us know. Okay, so I built four failed SaaS apps. Would they qualify as innovation? I also write on Hashnote. So there are 2 questions here, right? So interesting questions that you built, would 4 failed SaaS apps qualify as innovation? So question to you is, do you have external proof of those apps being innovative? Do you have industry media or any other kind of contributions? Because if you do, and those apps were successful and then they failed, maybe there is a case there. It depends on the situation, right? If basically send us more information, like how did they fail and what happened. You also write on Hashnote. That's really, Hashnote is a self-publishing platform. There is no moderation, right? So it's not really relevant for the second criteria. There has to be moderation. Okay, so I'm not familiar with which kind of platforms QA engineers go for to learn about the QA space. Maybe we have other QA engineers who can make recommendations, but I guess the question is to you, Moxan, like which platforms do you go to learn more about your field? And you can see if this platform accepts guest publications and you can publish there. I think that's really the best way forward and the best advice that I can give. And I'm specifically, even, I'm not, obviously I cannot know all the platforms for all the specialties, but I refrain from recommending specific things or creating like a list of acceptable things, because I do know that this will be overused. So you really should do your own research and find platforms that are genuine and like authentic to your specialty, and try to get published there. Build a name for yourself there, and receive some kind of recognition from the community this way. But all of this takes time, right? It can't be done quickly, and that's the point of this like recency expectation, why your evidences shouldn't be all recent, right? So hope that makes sense. So the third criteria is probably the most popular one. Pretty much everybody chooses it. So it's all about your work projects. So if you are thinking about where to put in your work-related projects, the things you've done at work that you're proud of, this is the criteria. This is the bucket where your work stuff goes. So here you want to show projects, products that you've built, that you led. It's very important that you were the leader of this development, that had some kind of impact on the growth of your company. And it has to be product led, very important, that it's not a consultancy. And where you also had the impact on the industry. That's important. It's much harder to show than the impact on the company, but it's becoming more and more important. So try to focus on projects that had some kind of influence on the industry, that inspired change, that maybe led to some competitors doing something similar, or maybe some articles in the media appeared that talked about the influence your product had on the space. Here again, you need to do more research. You need to Google. You need to think how to present it. Very often people think that there is nothing out there and like they cannot prove impact on the industry, but very often it's just a matter of research. So if you think that off the top of your head you can't think of anything, maybe it's worth thinking more and coming up with more ideas. They can spending more time on this. I'm always happy to brainstorm with clients on this, but it's very important to show the impact on the growth of the company, but also the impact on the industry as a whole. So this slide is just ideas of how to show your involvement. Basically, you need to show some kind of document, some kind of proof that you were the leader of this project. That's very important. So the document here will vary from different specialties, but it has to be something that is not just a letter saying that you've done it. So normally these are some kind of screenshot showing that you were the leader of this project. That's number one. Number two is showing the impact. So showing typical case here is the dashboard that shows some numbers moving in the right direction, basically. So depending on your case, it will be different, but I'm guessing it's clear to everybody watching this what it means. But dashboards of revenue growth or user growth, or maybe saving money for the company, or making money, saving money, those things really work. And then the impact on the industry, so publications about it or some other evidence. It's super important that the third criteria is not just about letters, that it is about hard evidence like screenshots with links that they can verify. It's a huge error to just build everything on letters. It's not enough. Again, if you have any ideas for the third criteria, any doubts, let us know in the chat. So the fourth criteria is the academic one. I'll just talk about it super briefly. It's mostly meant for people with PhDs. So papers in peer-reviewed journals work here, peer-reviewed conferences, academic awards, letters from recognized experts in academia work as well. Again, as always, you have to have two unique evidence pieces that you submit here. And depending on your level of experience, the expectations are lower or higher. So the expectations are obviously lower from somebody who's just starting their work in tech than from somebody who's been in tech for 20 years. Specifics of your eligibility, I think I had some questions about academic profile. Better to discuss on the call because it's there is nuance there, right? So hopefully this helps. I'm not sure if you have many people with academic background watching this, but yeah, let us know. So we've covered the documents, right? Hopefully that's clear. You need to choose two optional criteria and the mandatory. For each criteria, you need at least two documents. If you have it, great. Better to have extra documents. I really like to have like some buffer in case one document doesn't work, so that you are not left with just one, and then you'll be rejected, and it's not really what you're going for here. Outside of the documents, you also need to submit 3 letters of recommendation from top experts in the field. You need to, here, if you're watching this live, you can maybe start drafting a list of people that you can ask for recommendations just for yourself. Then you need your CV, which needs to be adjusted for the purposes of technician's application. It's not your regular CV, it's a different kind of CV. And you need a personal statement. So an essay about why you want to get this visa, and basically, how you will contribute to the economy. I see people dropping off the live stream slowly, so just wanted to leave a cliffhanger here that there will be a special discount for people watching this, so you might want to stay. Okay, so this slide is the stages of application. Stage 1, stage 2. Stage 1 is where we're focused today. Gathering documents for the endorsement, basically applying for the endorsement for technician. Once you get your decision, it has to be done within 8 weeks. Normally it's much faster. Normally it's, I would say, 10 to 14 days is where most of my clients get endorsed. Some get endorsed in just 1 day, which is incredible, or like 3 days. But within 2 months you will get your decision back. After that, you can apply for the visa. You can get the visa from abroad, or you can make the switch if you're already in the UK and some other kind of visa. That's the process. It's quite straightforward. Once you get the endorsement, things typically are quite easy. And then you get, obviously the best UK visa, which can lead you to settlement and the British passport. I'll briefly talk about mistakes. I've done a couple of webinars on this channel. You can refer to them if you go to the live tab on my YouTube channel and you see the most popular live streams. Some of them will be about the top mistakes. So they were maybe a year ago or something like that, but they're honestly still very relevant because people still make those mistakes and still get rejected for them. So you can watch those webinars to learn more. They're much more detailed. So they're maybe like 2 hours just about the mistakes. So I'll just talk about some briefly, right? Kind of some that are top of mind for me. Maybe I'll skip some here. So for letters, it's choosing wrong experts, people who are not established enough, people who are not public enough, people who are not digital technology experts, right? So if you just use letters from some random people who are not really established in their career, that can lead to rejection. If you rely on experts who don't know you, that also happens. The requirement is that they know your work for at least a year, right? If you get a letter from some random dude who doesn't know you and who's famous, it won't work. So wrong experts can cost you the application, but obviously wrong letters, wrong content can cost you application as well. So what do I mean by wrong content? It's like content that, like, first of all, if your letters are just ChatGPT generated bullshit, it won't really work because technician assessors have seen enough of this already. The letters should not be AI generated. The letters should be authentic and they should talk about your contributions, what specifically you have done, how you've helped companies grow, how you've achieved recognition in this space, why this expert thinks that you are a global leader, and what you will do once you move to the UK. It's quite straightforward. People overcomplicate it, a lot. I do cover the letters in my course. I'll talk about it in a few minutes. It's really straightforward, even without the course. Just, the letter should be a bunch of stories about why this person thinks that you're a global talent. If you are eligible for the visa and you are really kind of global talent material, those letters are not a problem. If the letter is just fluff and there is nothing there, if it's very vague, you will get rejected most likely, right? So the letters are very important. And yeah, they're a key to your successful application. Basically, don't ignore them. So for mandatory, I've spoken about it briefly, maybe not briefly even today. I don't remember, but let me know if this makes sense. But if you don't have any external leadership proofs, most likely you'll be rejected. So if I had to estimate, if I had to guess, like 99% of applications, maybe not, but over 90, they get rejected because the person doesn't have public recognition of leadership for mandatory, right? And then no matter how great your letters are, no matter how like fluffy they are and how they call you great, like if you don't have that concrete evidence of being a leader in the field, verifiable by links and pictures, screenshots, I mean, very likely that the application will be rejected. I'm not saying 100% because I've consulted over 300 people by now. I've seen a lot, like I've seen maybe everything, close to everything. And I would say, yes, there are strange cases where strange things happen. So I never say 100% confidence on anything, but yeah, most likely the case without external proof of recognition won't be successful. I mean, we can look at your evidence together and we can see if there is something else that can be played up. But really, if like all your profile is just work, 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 get in touch and we can see if there is like something can be um, we can brainstorm, right, what can be done. But like if you're applying on your own and you only submit your work publications, or if you're working with some, I don't know, unprofessional or scammy expert, and they're just submitting your applications with just a few work projects and your salary, just kind of manage your expectations. Okay, so um, yeah, it's nothing new. I've been talking about it for 2 years, but it still comes up every day in my consultation. So just be aware of it and don't underestimate the importance of public stuff. So for OC1, failing to show and prove innovation is normally the biggest problem. If you don't have any external proof of innovation, then the application, this criteria will likely not be granted. For the second, as I said before, there is no impact, there is no recognition, there is no influence on the field of tech. Again, if this is an article with very few views, for instance, and maybe mentorship that has no impact or like no stats there for the impact or for the contributions, then yeah, this criteria is going to be a problem. But so I've spoken about it in detail, so we can move on. For the third criteria, as I said, if you just use letters, it's a problem. It's going to be a very weak criteria, might get rejected. The product experience is important if you work in consultancies and you try to package your consultant experience as product and submit it for the third criteria, and like you leave a link to your company, you go there and it's like obviously a consulting, like it's a consultancy, it says in big letters it's a IT consulting service company, and in big letters it says our services will build your website, and then in your documents you pretend that this is a product company. I mean, come on, like this won't work, right? So focus on product experience. Just find examples in your career where you worked in a product company and use it, and that's straightforward, that will work. Ignoring the 3-page rule. If your documents are longer than 3 pages, it's a problem. You're breaking rules. Things that are outside of the 3 pages, they won't be read. If you get rejected, then they will for sure mention this in their rejection, right? So just follow the rules. Everything that's in the guide is important. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And then not having a consistent story, like if your whole application is kind of a mixed bag of different stories, different storylines that don't tie together, kind of nothing makes sense. I mean, it will be hard for the technician assessor to understand it. And if we don't understand something, we tend to be negative towards it, or we tend to avoid it. So very likely this will get rejected as well. I mean, you won't be rejected just for having an inconsistent story. Normally there are multiple problems with the case that get it rejected, but having a consistent story, it helps even if your case is somewhat weaker maybe than it should be. If your case is non-standard, for instance, if you have some, I don't know, strange background, or you've done some agency work, or you've done something that isn't exactly what technician is looking for, you have to have a consistent story. It's super important. Okay, so let me see a question. Do you think a YouTube video which is about some topics you who are trying to talk, which I'm not sure I understand, has 350 views, do you think it might be considered as recognition? So yeah, I'm not sure what it means. A lot more context is needed. What kind of YouTube video, where it's posted, who's there, who are they talking about? So yeah, please clarify. So can we divide similar evidence, basically? Can we use some public speaking for MC and some public speaking for OC2? Yeah, for sure. Had a lot of clients who do that. If you have a lot of public speaking, it's a good problem to have. So you can definitely do that. Right, I don't think we have any more questions so far. Please keep them coming. Please keep, liking the video and subscribing if you haven't. It really does help more people to get this information. Maybe decrease the number of rejections, which would be great. So yeah, please support the channel. I think the takeaway is here is that you don't really need anyone's permission to apply, right? You don't need me to say, yes, you're eligible, please apply. I think it's helpful to have somebody evaluate your eligibility, because then you won't waste your time if there is really no chance of you getting endorsed. But ultimately, even if some expert tells you you're not eligible, you can still apply, right? It's relatively affordable. It's an open process, permissionless process, and I think it's what makes the visa so great. The thing about it is that the visa either takes time or it takes money, or very often it takes both. So you can do it on your own, which is doable, but it will take a lot more time on you. So you can use my YouTube channel, you can use the forums, you can use the internet to learn about a lot of those topics and kind of create your application on your own. It will take time, or you can work with somebody like me. It will cost you money, but will save you a lot more time and increase your chances of success as well. Basically, you don't have to do it alone. I did it alone and it wasn't fun. So I think it's wise getting some kind of support from somebody with experience. It just accelerates your process so much and just makes things much less stressful. But you have to choose those people carefully. That's, I think, is key. It's better to apply on your own than with a bad lawyer or a bad coach. So disclaimer slide, I'm not an immigration lawyer, and I only help with stage 1. So be aware of that. If you have questions that are related to immigration law, I can't advise on them. Why work with me? If you're watching my channel, you probably know me and my backstory, but if not, then I think it's important to remember that I have tech experience. I have experience working in large tech companies. I have startup experience. I also have journalism experience, which means that I do know how to write a good story, how to craft a good narrative, so I can help with that. In my reviews, I sort of act as an editor, right, trying to help you tell a convincing story. But since I worked in tech, I also understand tech topics, so I'm able to advise you on how to improve your narratives and storytelling when it comes to technical topics as well. My background is very diverse. As I said, since I also have an editing experience and the software experience, I have experience writing a book and doing a lot of those things, doing things in the public, being in the public space, blogging, YouTubing, working on a personal brand. So I can share tips on that as well. This is a very common question my clients ask me, like, how do I increase my public persona? How do I increase my personal brand? So I can help you with some tips on personal brand as well. And What else? I do help everybody. So even though most of my cases have been software engineers, I've helped a lot of people who are not technical get endorsed. I don't really see that like big difference between technical and non-technical profiles. I think the rules and the expectations are very similar. So always happy to help you. And yeah, you can see that there is a lot of information on my channel, so I keep informed and also I share the information freely. And yes, I went through the process myself, so I know what it's like. So I'm with you. I know how hard it is. So if you want to make the process a little bit easier, you can get in touch with me and be my next client. So I'm getting close to the special offer for the participants of the webinar. So there are a couple of ways to learn from me. So obviously there is YouTube, free information. I also have a website where there are some articles that you can read, but mostly it's YouTube. So it's dozens of live interviews and webinars and so many hours of free content that you can use to apply. I have a lot of people who just watched my videos and applied the tips there. I think the key there is not just listening, but applying. And they got endorsed. They messaged me. They never paid me a dime, but it's great that they got endorsed without wasting money on unreliable people. So that's good. I like it. If you do this and you get endorsed, let me know in the comments or maybe message me or email me. Let me know. I'm always happy to hear from people who did that. Then there is the one-on-one coaching, which is the most expensive option. Obviously, this is one-on-one work, so it's premium and it's kind of white glove. When I say one-on-one, it is really one-on-one. I do the coaching myself. I don't outsource it. So if you are, booking a call with me, it will be me on the call, and I will be reviewing your documents. So you can expect to get the full guidance and all of my knowledge basically if you book me as your coach. There's also a premium course which is very affordable and it still allows you to use my experience that I've got from working with hundreds of people, right? So, but it's still relatively affordable. So, the first session that I do with all my clients is a discovery. It's not free. I don't think the session should be free. And it's a holistic 1 hour call where we assess your eligibility. We look at the criteria. We choose the criteria for you. We create a high level overview of which documents you will submit for your application. And at the end of the call, you know whether you are eligible for the visa right now. Then you can just go, start preparing the documents on your own or with me and apply and get endorsed. Or you learn this visa is not appropriate for you for, some reasons. Maybe you need to work on your profile. Maybe you need some other experience. So we'll discuss that, and we'll also discuss a strategy that you need to follow to get endorsed in the future. So all of this is covered in the discovery call. If you want to book it, email me. My email will be on the screen soon. Very useful call. I think really it can save you dozens of hours of research. It can save you a lot of money if you are not eligible. And also, importantly, if you book a discovery call with me and then you book a review package, so you work with me as a coach, I will discount the cost of the discovery from that package. So you don't really overpay, right? It's kind of a one-time thing. If you don't work with me, that's all you pay. If you do work with me, then I don't charge you again for discovery because discovery is sort of like part of our work together. So yeah, let me know if you'd like a discovery session sometime soon. The next thing that most people will get is the premium course. So it's a course if you already know that you're eligible for the visa. Maybe you've done, I do recommend getting the discovery call with me or with some reliable specialist that told you, yes, you're eligible. And you work in digital technology, right? So this course works for business candidates and for technical candidates as well. So the idea behind the course was to take all of my experience coaching hundreds of people and putting it into easily digestible, short video lessons. I mean, I tried to make them short, but it's still quite a long course. There is a lot there. So it's videos with transcripts that will help you prepare the documents on your own, right? So it's self-guided. If you get it, you just work through the course, you prepare your drafts based on that. And yeah, that's it. I mean, your documents, if you just get the course, your documents will be better than maybe 80% of the people who apply, even without any of my coaching, right? So I really think it's sort of a no-brainer in this space. I think it's one of the most affordable products in the space that exists. So it's 16 lessons with captions and transcripts for your convenience. This is the course plan. As you can see, it's very detailed and covers a lot of stuff. So here is the offer. So for webinar participants, I'm offering 50% of the course. I only do sale like this maybe twice a year. So I do it on Black Friday, and then when I do a webinar. So if you message me with the word webinar on this email, oh, there is actually an error in my email. So it should be beetlehope.com, obviously. And message me, let me know that you were at the webinar and you'd like to get onboarded to the course. I'll send you 50% off. I think if you're thinking about applying in the future, just get the course and you can kind of go through it later. Then, if you want to, we can also do a review together where I will work with you one-on-one on your documents. You will prepare the drafts. I will review them, give you the feedback, and then you can apply the feedback to this document and also to the next document. So it's iterations. It's one document, after another. This way, you get a good and kind of wholesome, detailed feedback on every document that you submit. So if you want to make your documents the best shape they are, this is a package for you. I don't really offer premium coaching anymore for a bunch of reasons. So review is the primary way for me to work with clients now. It's much cheaper than premium coaching. I think it's currently, again, one of the most competitively priced offers on the market. And yeah, it's a great package. I love doing reviews, so get in touch. Here is a review for the course and review, right? So discovery call. So most people will get the discovery call and then they will get the review, and as part of the review, they will also get the course, right? So this is how people currently get endorsed with my help. What else? Yeah, unfortunately, if I face an unfortunate rejection, I can help with that. There is a package that I do with appeals. I've just received, I think, 2 or 3 requests for appeals in the last 24 hours. So if you are also in this position that you got rejected, you can get in touch with me. If you got rejected less than 28 days ago, we can still file an appeal. If it's been longer, I can still look at your case and we can create a strategy to move forward. Maybe, if there is a chance, you can submit a new application and get endorsed. If not, then it's still good to get an idea of what you're missing and why exactly you got rejected. So another thing I think that I can help with. Make sure to ask your questions now. I think we'll be wrapping up quite soon. So it's been already over an hour and it's really hard to talk so long without anybody else. Let me know again in the comments if you have any questions. So these are my contact details. LinkedIn, I know some people struggle messaging me there. For some reason, I think I've hit some limit of connections or something like that. So just email me. So this is the email for coaching questions. Send your question and I'll get in touch with you within normally 24 hours or faster. Okay, it's time for a Q&A. Let me go back to the course. So yeah, reminder, email me for if you want to get the course. And here is what it includes. Okay, let's see the questions. So if I want to get a reference letter to prove that I worked on an impactful project, should the person who writes the letter be an established expert? My indirect manager may not be an expert. So I'm guessing we're talking about OC3 and getting reference letters to support that. The requirements for those experts are, I would say, a little bit lower than for the main letters. just for like by my experience, but they still should be established experts in the space. I would try to get as strong experts as you can for all of your letters. Obviously, if you can't get really senior people for your support letters, it can work. Make sure that they're not your managers or colleagues, and make sure that they have still an established career and they can still you can still make a case for why they are an expert, right? So it's still important. I think it's important to realize that the case is made up of so many components. All things matter there, right? And letters can really tie things together. They can increase your chances. So, and getting strong experts to support you is one of the easiest ways you can increase your chances of success. So please do that whenever possible. Okay, question from Jeremy. Can I use letters from leaders at big companies? I have two from Funk to fulfill multiple criteria. So I'm not sure I understand this question correctly, but if I do, so for instance, can you get one letter to support innovation and another letter to support contribution, OC1 and OC3? Yes, for sure. But this should be like obviously different experts talking about different projects and in different ways, right? So the way you describe a project for innovation is different than you would describe it for OC3. Um, you can have people from the same company talking about different projects, and you can, yeah, that's allowed. I would only say one thing here for you, Jeremy, just a piece of advice is that try to, I'm not sure like what your background is, but try to vary things up. Try not to have people from the same company write all of your letters. Sometimes it's impossible. For instance, if, I mean, not impossible, but sometimes it's very difficult. For instance, if you have spent the last 10 years just working at one company, then most of your letters will be about this company and from people at this company. But as much as possible, try to vary things up and to have diverse experts from different companies, from different sort of spheres where you might have gotten to know them, right? So if you have letters from your jobs, then try to also have letters that are unrelated to your jobs, that are just about your contributions to the field of tech. Hopefully this helps. Change in the endorsement process, follow public announcements, and I think that's the best tip I can give here. Okay, Jeremy, I'm in video games. It would be people from different big companies. Yeah, it works great. If you have more specific comments or questions, you can get in touch with me directly. Okay, thanks for the helpful advice. I'm glad that I could help. Let's see. So going back to the question about like a video having 350 views, I would need to see the video itself and what it represents in the context of the channel where it was published and how niche the topic was and like what the event was. Hard to say here. I would say it all depends on the context. Sometimes we use videos that are limited viewership but have some other kind of significance. Like just if you think about abstract numbers, yeah, 350 views doesn't sound like a big number, but it depends on like what kind of event this was or what kind of talk this was. If, for instance, if it's not a video, if it's a conference or event where you are speaking and there are 350 people in the audience, that's very impressive, right? So that's yeah, it's hard to answer such questions. So if you have any concerns or any questions about your evidences and whether they're strong enough, just get in touch and we can look at your application together. All right, so yeah, there is 10 more people watching. Let me know if you have questions. If not, please write in the chat, I don't know, thanks or bye or something. Then I know that people are tuning out, or I'll stay on for a few, maybe like a minute or more. Let me know what you think about this webinar in the comments, and get in touch with me on email. Okay, so another question. I work with databases in my organization, and my unit doesn't push code to repositories. It makes it difficult for me to show that I developed the scripts or have improved our data systems. Any advice? So in cases like this, you can use the same advice that somebody who is not writing code at all would use. They would use screenshots from some other tools that prove that you developed those scripts. So very common document. People would use screenshots from their Jira or another project tool, or Google Docs, for instance. If you write um, like a tech plan for a project, for instance, you can get a screenshot of that, showing that this was like an official tech plan, that there is your name, the name of the project, things like that. So there are usually ways to prove that you have developed certain things within an organization, and you can be quite creative with it. And it's always good to provide the context for why you can't provide screenshots of the repositories, right? And another thing, please remember that it's fine to redact sensitive information from your evidences. You only need to show enough for a technician to see that you have done it, that you have contributed, but you don't really need to jeopardize your company, for instance, or to completely break your NDA for this to be successful, right? So it's again nuanced, and I'm happy to review your documents and see whether you have redacted too much or not enough. And I'll be happy to help with that if needed. Okay, so question for OC2, OC4, do the papers need to be related to my job? The paper is not related to QA. So the question is, what is the paper about, right? So typically the second criteria, the fourth criteria, it has to be digital technology. It can be papers from about something else. If you are choosing the fourth criteria, it means that you have some serious academic background, you've done some research, you've spoken at academic conferences, so you have academic papers. If they're related to digital technology, potentially you can use them. But I think the bigger question is how you will tie it to your other evidences about QA, right? So all of it needs to be tied together in the storytelling. And this is where the personal statement comes in. And this is where I think it's important to get the document reviewed, the application reviewed in its entirety before you apply, so that everything makes sense together. Okay, so I'm getting questions about whether like a specific number of stars and contributions will be enough for the endorsement. This is where I really draw the line, not saying whether it would be enough or not, because it depends, and it depends on what else is there, right? So obviously, it sounds good that you have repositories. Although, question. So you have contributed to those repositories. Like the repositories have over 10,000 stars. That's something, and you have contributed to them. But the question is, what have you contributed exactly? And this is why it's important to talk to somebody trying to assess their application, right? It's not just me or other coaches trying to sell you their discovery calls. It's really, you need to talk to the client to be able to answer a question like this. So if somebody just submitted some like two pull requests to a repo, fix some bugs or in documentation, no, that's not really what they're looking for. If you're one of the major contributors to a repo, yes, this is more relevant, right? So it kind of depends on a lot of different factors here. So hopefully that clarifies it. Do get in touch if you want more detailed answer. Yeah, so for the new mentorship rule about physical mentorship, that's a good question. To me, it's still not entirely clear how strict this will be enforced. So I did have people get endorsed more recently whose mentorships programs they were mixed, physical and online. So I would watch this space and I would follow more rejections and endorsements with mentorship to see more clarifications, because it's a new addition to the rule, right? So it's a bit unclear. How do we learn about it? So once the rejections start coming out, where technician mentions that, hey, this mentorship, it was like structured, there was selection for it, it was curriculum was organized, all of that stuff, but it was online, and that's why we reject. Yeah, then I think we can make a conclusion. So far, I haven't seen that, right? So let's watch the space and let's see what happens. So for now, I think that's the best and the most honest answer that I can give you. Right. So yeah, I'm seeing that this answer also helped. Okay, let's take, I don't know, 30 more seconds. I think I've gone through everything. Here is my contact details once again, if you need help. All right, so it's time for goodbyes. Let me know whether this was helpful. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Be in touch with me by email if you have follow-ups, if you want to get the course. Um, I think that the best feedback I got on the course was where the client said that they spent 12 months sitting on free forums and Telegram chats, and then they learned much more after watching my course for a couple of hours. So I think it's a huge time saver. So um, I'm happy to offer it at a reduced price for those who are serious about the application. And yeah, looking forward to your feedback, looking forward to your emails. Hope this was helpful. And let's stay in touch. See you during the next webinar. Bye bye.